Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another university segment of the REIMAGINE 2020 virtual conference. This is version 2, Disrupting the System. I'm your co-host, Ashlie Meredith, Head of Education at MouseBelt Blockchain Accelerator, and today I'm interviewing a returning guest, Erick Pinos, the Decentralized Identity Product Manager for Ontology. He's also the president of BEN, the Blockchain Education Network. And if you missed his interview last time, I highly recommend you go back to the REIMAGINE 2020 YouTube channel and take a listen there. Welcome back to the show, Erick. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me back, Ashlie. I really enjoyed the last conference, and I tried to stay up the full 72 hours. I really did, but it was a lot. But I'm excited to be back and to see all of the new speakers and returning speakers and see what everyone's been up to in the 3 months since the last conference.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to invite you back because I think last time you talked a lot about the journey of blockchain education, what you saw since 2014, kind of starting your own clubs, joining the Blockchain Education Network, some of the challenges to adoption at universities. And I wanted to have you back again to talk in a more forward-looking way. Give us an update, especially since it's been 3 months and it looks like students aren't going to be returning back to campus anytime soon. How is BEN responding? What are your plans for this next semester?
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting couple of months. Some of the stuff that BEN has been doing over the summer has been, it's obviously been very online focused. It's also been different from typical online events. There were 2 main things. One was the BEN Wiki, which was a Wikipedia that anyone could edit, not just BEN students, to contribute the content and lessons that they've created, as well as to translate content that other students have made, and to lastly do activities from, so they could pick activities and do activities. And this is kind of the latest evolution. And previously it was a Google Drive where everyone had their docs. Now it's being a wiki, it's a lot more intuitive in how students can edit, and that's very much student-led. So it gave students the ability, the opportunity to step up and kind of do a summer project and take ownership over a summer project. You could pick a curriculum or pick a project that you really liked, go really in depth, and then make a lesson about it. And then BEN would do the marketing support in like tweeting about that lesson and getting other students to do that lesson. So that was really cool for them. And we also did a bunch of like newsletter features and Medium blog posts about different students and different alumni and the stuff that they're doing, and just kind of bringing more and more recognition. And try to keep the community going through like the online events and the online community channels, especially because no one's like meeting offline. And it'll definitely be interesting to see going into the fall, because it doesn't look like things will change that much, because most of the clubs are not going to be meeting, because most of the universities are going to be remote, even in the fall. So we'll all, as a space, not just BEN, but like all of our partners in the blockchain space in general, will have to keep doing stuff online, which means that we have to keep thinking about how do we keep things interesting. I think at this point, there's been a lot of online conferences and a lot of online hackathons, and we can try more and more interesting things, right? We don't have to keep doing the same thing over and over again. So more online initiatives like contributing to open source projects or incentivizing education and doing more like games and competitions, I think could keep things interesting.
Absolutely. I think that it's a great opportunity to experiment because it's a low risk environment, right? You're not spending a bunch of money to rent a venue to host this event, right? You could whip up a Zoom room and just see how it goes. And so I'm really looking forward to the ability to experiment with different types of events and different topics. So what are you seeing as far as what you think students are most interested right now? Because one of the solutions that a student I've talked to is that, with larger clubs who are used to meeting in person, Zoom room doesn't have the same kind of engagement for that kind of the way that those kinds of events were going. So they're kind of looking at a more focused, smaller breakout groups of like, what do these students actually want to work on, and having kind of more of a themed events. Are you seeing anything specifically that students are really excited about working on?
Yeah, I think so. I think that one of the issues with doing online events is that if everyone's in the same room, only one person can talk at a time and everyone else kind of has to listen. So you really miss the networking part of events. And I've seen some tools that make it, they do these interesting things where you can you can have one main call and then you break out into the individual rooms. And then each one is like its own smaller call. That's pretty cool because then students can break out based off a topic, but then reconvene at the end of the meeting where, you want to capture what everyone's been working on so you can synergize and then switch up the groups. There's been some stuff like that in VR, which I think is really interesting, like the alt space and the Decentraland, where you have the spatial voice, where like if I wanted to go and chat to this group over there, I would literally like move my avatar over there and then I can hear them. That's pretty cool because now you can break up a room of, it's not just a Zoom room of 30 people, but you can actually split up into the different things. The only issue is that like, I think VR is very Wi-Fi intensive, right? Or like internet intensive. So it's difficult for students that are in low socioeconomic regions or in other countries or in developing nations for them to participate in those conversations. And that's something that I think about a lot is like, how do you in the tools, from everything from the tools that you use to the content that you talk about, how do you make sure that you can stay inclusive and include all of these people in the conversation? Which is why like I like VR as a technology, but I don't think it's the best tool that we have right now for enabling those conversations because not everyone has great internet access. But I think it's getting there. And I think in the meantime, there are tools that need less internet access, but also, as you say, help facilitate these like breakout conversations that students can go and like have these individual conversation and topics.
Yeah, so if you were to do something like that, what kinds of topics do you think students would be really interested in breaking out and working more closely on with a smaller group of students?
I think students are really interested right now in finding strong use cases for blockchain. I mean, most students that come are usually interested in something besides just blockchain. Like I either like, oh, I really like energy, or I like healthcare, or I came into this space thinking a lot about social impact and how it could be used for that. So I feel like the sessions that are themed around problems and how blockchain can be applied to solve these particular problems, those are the sessions that we've found the most effective, and also the sessions at Ontology we've found the most effective. It's one thing to host an event like, oh, here's this cool technology, or here's this blockchain, and learn about how fast it is and how great it is. It's another thing to host a session about blockchain and cancer research. And is it applicable? How is it applicable? The answer might be that it's not applicable. We need to find and disqualify industries as much as we need to find the industries where it is applicable. But the conversations around that, I feel like, are a lot more deep and meaningful. And you can also bring in people that aren't from the blockchain space but can contribute their knowledge. And that's really exciting because at this point, like, I think like most of us have heard the same blockchain speakers speak over and over again. So I'm glad that we're bringing in more people from the outside to kind of lend us their expertise in these other industries so that we can think about how we can apply blockchain to that.
Yeah, totally. That's been really exciting for me, especially as someone who came from basically the most soft humanities you can come from, which is philosophy, to really see the kinds of students who've been attracted to our programs, which is what you would expect, about 60% data scientists, computer scientists, and other, engineering backgrounds. But there's also a huge amount of law, even in environmental majors, communications and marketing people. So it's really awesome to see the diversity of interest in blockchain, and those students are looking for information from people in their field as well. So I think it's a great point. Hopefully everyone listening, students and protocols like Ontology, take that to heart and think about what kind of content or what kind of events or what kind of information are people looking for right now. Which kind of brings me to my next point or question that I had for you, which was, our last conference was conceived in response to a lot of these student events being canceled and people stuck at home. And we took it as an opportunity to kind of pause and reflect and think about how we could reimagine some of these systems. And I think since May, we have only seen more and more failure of those systems, economic recession, failed responses to the pandemic, political tensions in the US and abroad. So this time our theme is disrupting the system. And we want to talk about how we can take back the powers that govern money, politics, education. So wanted to talk to you a bit about how ontology is playing a role in this, and those real world use cases you were talking about before. What are some of the use cases that the company is exploring? What's coming out? What's new? And how do you think those things might be able to transform our society?
Sure. First, I was going to say, I think philosophy can get pretty technical. I've took a philosophy class. I could see they use the mathematical equations representing your thoughts as math. So give yourself a lot of credit there. Philosophy is really hard. I didn't do so good at it, but I tried. As for what ontology is doing, we are focused a lot. We've always been focused a lot on enterprise and using digital identity and how we could decentralize identity, how we can decentralize data, promote data privacy, give people control of their data, help them monetize their own data. We definitely think that, you need data to power the world, right? Like machine learning runs on data. So it would be a bad situation if all of the data was locked up. If everyone owned their own data and kept it private, then that's good for data privacy, but it's not so good for like future innovation and things that we need. Like if you're trying to do something like research, especially the example that I go to is like say cancer research, you need big data sets and you need to get people to be willing to share their genomes so that you can run the algorithm on enough data sets or large enough data sets to be able to figure out what each gene does to do the gene sequencing. But so you have to get people to be willing to share their data, and we have to do that in a way that they still own their data, right? But they're able to share it. They're able to share it comfortably. It's with their consent. They're able to take it back when they want. And like you said, the systems right now in place aren't working out so well. Like GDPR isn't working out so well, and so they like made some revisions to it. But it's trying to enforce data privacy from a regulatory perspective, whereas now we have the ability to enforce data privacy from a code perspective. And from a blockchain perspective, using zero knowledge proofs and using these blockchain incentivization mechanisms, like with the tokens, and like you're paying people to access data in tokens, and you can revoke access like an access key. So I think that I'm not really much. I don't like to think of myself as a technologist because I don't think that all of the problems in the world can be solved with just technology. But I think that what we have here is an opportunity that a lot of the things that are trying to be solved right now with policy or with regulations could actually be solved with technology in the form of smart contracts, like legal contracts to become smart contracts. So that's definitely something we want to explore, while also exploring, new policies and new regulations that we could put in place to appropriately help nurture the technological innovation into a healthier way.
Absolutely, and I think that with the pandemic and with how important it might be in the future to disclose or let other people know, I think people are going to become more and more willing to share their personal health data if it's necessary for them to like enter a venue or go to work if they need to show their like COVID test results. And so I think people are going to become more and more willing to share their health data. So I think it's really important that we have a system that is regulated, whether by code or whatever, for keeping that stuff private. Any other initiatives or big things happening over at Ontology that you would like to share?
Yeah, so I mean, we think a lot about the data and the data privacy, and we're working on a lot of initiatives on blockchain for data in health, blockchain for data in real estate and property management, in notarization and in legal frameworks. But one thing that is really popular right now with decentralized finance, we've deployed a solution for a decentralized credit score. And what that really lets you do is, right now, decentralized finance is at this breaking point or this turning point where it's all, it's stacked on top of each other, right? So like you build more and more complex DeFi applications on top of like more simpler DeFi applications, which is a really cool thing about it because you can make all these complex financial instruments. At the bottom layer one of the bottom layers is lending. So this idea of like, all right, I can lend my token to someone else and then, borrow against it. And then you have this whole like debt system that's on the blockchain. But the issue right now is that all the lending is collateral based. So you have to put in the collateral to be able to take out a loan, which isn't the best thing because you already, it's a very limited type of customer. You already have that capital if you're putting it in to take out a loan. Normally when you take out a loan, it's because you don't have that capital and you need the loan for real world things like, oh, I need student loans, or I need to mortgage a house, or I need to buy a car, right, or lease a car. But in the blockchain world, which is supposed to be better and is supposed to be the new way of doing things, I can only take out a loan if I already have the money that I need to take out the loan from. So that kind of limits it to just traders that want risk exposure. It's like, I don't want to sell my ETH, but I want to own this other token. So I lock my ETH and I borrow against it with this other token. Now you're exposed to two different assets. So it works for traders, and it's kind of made this whole like big jump in this whole like market, this bull market that we're seeing, but it's not getting to that state where it's like useful for like regular people that want to just take out a regular loan until we're able to have credit score based loans again, which is where instead of me over collateralizing my token and then taking out against it, is like I'm presenting my credit score. And if I have a trustworthy credit score, then I'm able to borrow, which is like how it works in the traditional world. But in the blockchain world, you know, people are very against like all your data being out there and KYC and like identifying yourself and like everyone knowing everything about you, and like these companies that have a score that is, you know, that they own the score about you and they sell that score to other people. So applying decentralized identity to it, you own your own score. You have the ability to burn your score and start from scratch with a new score. Obviously, like the more history you have, the better your score is, but it's not a number that controls you. You have a lot more control over that number. And you know, this is a tool that Ontology is offering. Like it's a cross-chain decentralized credit score, so you can pull your total assets from different blockchains. You could pull the total debt that you have across different blockchains. You could pull like if you've been liquidated before, like in bad debt events. So this score about you, you can then take this and go to a DeFi platform. The DeFi, you know, as a DeFi platform, you could integrate this score and make decisions about whether or not you're going to give loans to people based off of that. And that's known as like under collateralized lending or credit delegation, which Av has been spearheading a lot in some of the initiatives that they've been doing. And I really think that that's really going to bring the next wave of DeFi and the next revolution in DeFi is being able to lend based on reputation, because now people can start taking out loans for traditional things. Like now I don't need to go to my bank anymore to take out a real loan for a real business. I could actually take out a loan against the blockchain for a real world use.
Yeah, I think that's so important. If you know, if we believe that this decentralized technology is supposed to replace banks, then we need to make sure that this is accessible to everyone. So I think that's a great solution for that problem. I think it's great that Ontology is diving into the DeFi space. I know it's super hot right now. I think that's another thing that students want to learn a lot about. So I just want to plug our next event. We're doing a WTF is DeFi event on September 18th. So check us out on Facebook or Twitter to see, you know, what all of our upcoming events and talks will be for Reimagine 2020. So just to wrap this up, I wanted to end with a fun question. You know, as students are not really returning to campus, we find ourselves with a lot more free time. How are you staying educated? How are you teaching yourself things? Any books you could recommend or podcasts you're listening to right now?
That's a good question. What's the most? I think recently I've been on a big Substack binge. So Substack is like a new medium, or it's a new medium, but it has a newsletter component to it. And I feel like a lot of big, or not big, but a lot of authors that try to build a big Medium audience, but Medium is really congested now and has a lot of like paywalls and a lot of weird decisions that they're making about which articles to promote. It's a lot smaller and it's almost like a lot more indie. I guess now it's more like popular, but in the past couple of months was when it really came through. Point is that there's a lot of really good authors on there, and there's a lot of really good, interesting articles that people are just giving their opinions about. For example, I subscribe to one newsletter that's specifically about sports technology. And that's something that I never thought I would be into. Sorry, my lights just started flashing and I was like, oh, what is that? But so I subscribe to a sports tech newsletter, which I never thought I would. Like, I don't play sports. I don't really care about sports, but it drew me in because it was recommended to me because the article was about sports and virtual reality and how can virtual reality be used in sports. So I was like, oh, wow. And then I found out the whole theme of this guy's newsletter is about different types of sports technology. So I subscribed to the newsletter, which I never thought I would never have subscribed to a newsletter about like sports technology before, but because it was able to recommend it to me that way, I got looped in, and now I'm learning about all different sorts of sports technology, like how machine learning is used in sports, how blockchain can be used for sports. Like can you tokenize like different sports games, sports betting, like the FanDuels and the Trade King and all that stuff. So it was really cool. And I definitely recommend like checking that stuff out. I think books are great, but it's also great to read things from like really small authors, because I think everyone has something interesting to contribute and everyone has an interesting perspective. So getting as many different opinions, you have to get to a certain level before you can really publish a book. Unless you I guess you could self-publish, but even then it's a big commitment to go write a book. Whereas if you're like browsing Medium articles or Substack articles, you can see people just putting out content daily, just talking about things happening in their day. And I feel like that's how you can learn a lot, is just by reading those kinds of like small tidbits and those small viewpoints into other people's lives.
Well, I love that. I love the recommendation, to kind of check out smaller indie authors, to check out some of the new websites that are popping up and becoming more popular that might be distributing content in a way that's more maybe democratic or a way that you value more than medium.com. So everybody check out Substack, check out Erick's previous interview from Reimagine 2020 on YouTube. If you're a student, go check out what they're doing at Blockchain Education Network. And Erick, it's been wonderful chatting with you. Thank you so much for coming on. Everyone else, stay tuned for more content from Disrupting the System, Reimagine 2020 version 2.